Hey, everybody, and welcome to Unsupervised Consequences, Day 26. I'm your host, Dino the Genetic Marvel, and today I am talking about taking a break. Yesterday we talked about a work life balance or any sort of balance that you can have in life and how important it is figuring that balance out and knowing, how to fill up your schedule and all those kind of things. But I digress. Today was the statutory holiday you get for. I'm up in Canada, so Canada Day was this weekend. Tomorrow will be the 4th of July. So there are holidays happening all over the place. But so today was the day that nobody had to work. It was a great day. My wife and I, what we did was, so if you follow me on YouTube, you would have seen, well, actually, no, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I did a bunch of reels because I'm trying to train to do a chin up. That is one of my ultimate goals. So right now, I'm just hanging, and that's part of the process. So it's very exciting. But you would have seen there's been a lot of support and a lot of people turning up. But what I've done though is that I also posted about the fact that we went and saw a couple movies, we relaxed, and I kind of used my own self as my quote because I tried to look up quotes on taking a day off, and there are none that are good. Most of them just promote the fact that I'll take a day off when I'm dead, which I'm like, yeah, I have said that before, mostly with sleep, that I'll sleep when I'm dead. Because I love a good day off. And I've gotten to that argument with my spouse many a times how I'm like, listen, it's a government mandated holiday day. If the government of all people says you need a day off, you definitely need a day off. Now, granted, I've been too lax and been doing too little in my life as of late, so I'm trying to get more active. But I feel that we need to acknowledge the idea that we don't always hmm, we don't always use a day off. I think a lot of times we try and stuff our days off with activities that need doing, which I understand because we are strapped for time and we don't balance our lives. So we load up those days, like such as the weekend. We load up the weekend with tons of to do things and we have errands to run and this, that, and the other, and it ruins our weekend. So before we can actually enjoy that quote unquote time off, we end up having to go back to our vocation, whatever it may be. And that is ultimately the complete antithesis of what we should be doing with our time. I know that a lot of people would stand there and say that, well, if the more time you take off, the more behind you're going to get. Okay, I understand that. I understand that completely. I think you're wrong. And I think that's ridiculous. The reason I think it's ridiculous is because that's what leads to burnout. That's what leads to not being able to think rationally, not being able to critical think, not being able to protect your mind from the things that attacks on a daily basis. Remember, there is entire industries that are based on the idea and principle of manipulating your ability to use your resources in an equitable way to you. They would rather you funnel your resources, whether that be your time, your money, your energy, doesn't make a difference. All of those things are valid, and they're trying to take those away from you as best they can. And I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that if we don't control how our resources are spent, then we're just constantly empty. I think a lot of the things that we realized recently in the last few years was that idea or principle that for many of us, we lived in a situation that said, we just have to stay above zero. We just have to stay above zero and just try and, for our mental health and everything like that. And the fact is that we were so depleted, both emotionally, physically, mentally, um, that we thought zero was the okay number when it's actually 100. And we were so depleted and so worn out that when we had something, which listen, realistically, that was a very big event that we experienced. We all experienced it to varying degrees, and it was very difficult on some. It was unbelievably difficult on others. Um, and we all had a hard time in various ways. That being said, a lot of people lost their minds too. And that's scary because that means that it wasn't just that we were not adequate, we were defeated. And the result of that defeat was when we were left on our own, because that is what happened, um, we fell apart. And that's terrifying. So, one of the things that I've been making sure to keep in mind is the idea that I heard this statement, and I don't know where it's attributed to, but was that a step back isn't going backwards if it's a step in the right direction. So if you made the wrong call, which we all do, nobody's perfect. So if you make the wrong call, you say, "Hey, I got to step back and recalculate and go a different way," which I found out recently is apparently a genetic trait between me and my siblings. That we all do that, where we go, no, you know what? I need to refigure it out. I'll be back to you in a couple days. And but that idea is not a bad thing. It's still a move in the right direction, right? It's I believe you'd call it a tactical retreat. And knowing full well what we should and or shouldn't do is something that plagues all of us. None of us are immune to the idea of doing something and it being perfect every single time. I was talking with a friend about him trying to do some other things on social media and stuff, and I'm like, those all sound really good, but why don't you just pick one? And he said, well, if I'm good at it, I'll post it. And I just said, like, I don't know about that. That's because if you are successful every time, you're either not challenging yourself or you're some sort of wizard. That's difficult. That's a difficult existence, right? We all fail on a regular basis. And I think that's what we all have to understand is that if we can focus on the challenge and not how successful we are, then we meet the challenge with a different mindset and a different understanding, a different willingness to compete. I know my generation, I know a lot of people who have, uh, they were raised to not be competitive, but ultra competitive and to their own suffering, is to be very clear. They wanted, uh, they would push themselves so hard that it would damage their body, mind, and soul just to get the win. And that's not good. That's not a good thing, right? So knowing full well that that is an issue I'm jealous of, to be very clear, because I was never that competitive, and I would just be like, yeah, I don't care. It's just not important. I remember once somebody challenged me to an arm wrestle, and I'm like, oh, if there's no money, I don't care. He goes, $5, and I just beat him. The next person, I'm like, do you want to win? He's like, I'd love to win. I'm like, oh, go for it. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference. It's not important to me, right? And that's my mentality, which realistically is weak. But that was one of the key components, and I think that's something that we all have to keep in mind is taking a day off or a rest day, um, especially when you're trying to change your entire existence, is scary because we've been indoctrinated with the idea that if you take your foot off the gas, you're going to fall behind everything else. And oh, that's as soon as you take your foot off the gas, who knows if you're even competing anymore? That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous idea. Um, and that the idea, if you tell a race car driver, be like, oh, if you take off your gas, you're quitting the race. You're like, that's not how racing works. You have to apply the accurate or adequate amount of gas and brake depending on what you're doing. That's how a race works. So the idea that we've been indoctrinated with the principles of go, 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 never stop, and keep on giving, 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 giving. Oh, you have to stay late and work harder. Absolutely not. That's not true. There are a few actually, I guess, TikTokers or social media people who base their entire uh, content on dealing with ridiculous bosses and work environments that are absolutely horrible. I agree with wholeheartedly because they will take just like institutions, they don't produce things. They steal from us all. That's what their job is. They just take and take and take and take and take. And that's why it's up to us to self-regulate. And that's why I try and explain to people is that, look, we live in a world where now people have not a second job to pay for some extra thing. People would take, oh, I'm going to take an extra job for the summer or for the winter time so that I can use that money for a vacation later or something. That makes sense. Now people live a life with 1, 2, and 3 jobs just trying to make ends meet. Right? So we live in a system that is combating our ability to stop, to regain our focus, our understanding, our perspective, so that we can attack things with our own personality instead of being manipulated by what is happening around us. So it's where I'm going to leave it for today, but definitely take the time to take a day off, everybody. It's an important component to your growth in being able to observe, calculate, and analyze what you've been through and how it's affecting you. Because without those, I guess there would be a pulse check. You don't really know if you're on target or if you're even aiming for a goal that you set yourself. So keep that in mind. In the meantime, my name is Dino the Genetic Marvel. This has been Unsupervised Consequences, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel as I continue to produce content on a daily basis as best as I can. And we're talking about all sorts of things. If you have a question, feel free to leave it in the comments. I will respond or talk about it in the next vlog that I am putting out daily. But in the meantime, have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.